to the Radiothon, presented by Callan Construction with Bob and Brian.
Final hour of Bob and Brian's MACC Fund Radiothon. All thanks to Doral Equipment Rental. Boucher.com phone number 414-978-9500. And you got till 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
To bid on those auction items. And that
You've been warned.
closed.
You've been warned for 2 days that 5 o'clock is the cutoff point, and it is quickly approaching. You're down to about 50 minutes. Please welcome. It wouldn't be a Radiothon if we didn't have this guy on at some point. Please welcome to the show our good friend, John McGloklin. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon, John. I do that every year.
Hey, guys. This is our annual.
This is.
We wrap it up together every year, and I love being in the studio with you guys. It didn't work out quite this year, but thanks again to you two and to the station for what you do for the MACC Fund with this event that you spend a lot of time on, and the golf outing. That's a biggie.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Good to talk to you.
It is good to have you back on board. I just have a quick question for you, John, before we get down to the nuts and bolts of the Radiothon and raising money for the MACC Fund. You're tired of tacos. You're tired of
hamburgers.
Are you
really going to ask John about
this?
this?
I just want to know. I'll make it quick. You're just tired of everything you've been having. You see a new place open up. It's a steak joint, and it says in the window.
Well, it's a restaurant.
Right.
But I'm trying to come up with a hook.
Yeah. Would you go into a $20
lunch, $20? You get steak, potato, mashed potato.
Yeah.
But it's $20.
Corn.
You're in and out. Vegetable, steak, potato. You eat it with a knife and a fork. You sit down, you have a waiter, you get a nice drink.
I said for $20 I would not go in.
$20. It's $20.
I said what about you?
You're asking me if I would go in?
Yeah.
No, because I'm not interested in steak anymore. and I've got a story to that, by the way.
Okay.
I wouldn't go in because, I wouldn't be so scared about the price, but I really don't eat steak anymore, and people are like, huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
But now, think about this. Matter of fact, online last week, I was listening to Wayne Gretzky talk about what he ate for a pregame meal, and I'm like, that is me my whole life. All through high school, college, and half of the pros, my pregame meal, early afternoon, was a small steak, a baked potato, and a Twinkie afterwards.
A Twinkie.
Twinkies?
Brilliant. I never thought about making a Twinkie the third item instead of a vegetable.
That's the only carbohydrate I got, and a little bit in the potato.
Hold on. Was it one Twinkie?
It was a package. There's two of them.
Two of them. Okay. I was going to say that's pretty good discipline if you're just having one Twinkie.
Right. But in college, we didn't even have that. We had a small filet, toast, and honey. And I always wondered why warming up at the games in college, I had no energy. Well, I mean, I had a steak and some honey. And we found out all these years later in the NBA, of course, that you don't eat a steak. It's still in your stomach 2 days later. And Wayne Gretzky did the same thing because his dad did, that he would eat a steak, a baked potato, and I don't know, something else. And therefore, in today's world, like when my wife and I go out, I'm not interested in steak. I got staked out my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's why I wouldn't go in.
Okay, but now, just think of it as the seller from that point of view. Now, a 4-ounce steak?
Oh, what? I told him here's what I told him.
Think about this.
Okay.
You get a quarter pounder. You get a quarter pounder deluxe.
Mm-hmm.
That's 4 ounces of meat.
Okay.
Then also your vegetable, whatever lettuce and tomato is on there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the bun is the start. So now instead of that, you got a quarter-pound piece of meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't tell them it's a 4-ounce steak. We call it a quarter-pound steak.
It's all about the marketing, John.
Right, and then the potato takes place in the bun and whatever vegetable we have.
Is there a roll? Do I get a roll with my meal?
No roll.
Not with a bun.
No roll.
No roll.
No.
Well, I'd eat a quarter pounder.
Yeah.
Well, McDonald's knows that.
It's a matter of how you're presenting it. Presentation is mega mind.
I like the creativity. It's a quarter-pound steak.
Yes. Juicy. It's good.
Yeah, I like that. Now you're kind of getting my attention. It's like,
Okay.
ooh. Yeah.
4-ounce steak, not so much. 4-ounce steak.
Yeah.
Ugh.
No, you're right.
Quarter pound of prime juicy
Hey, I
beef.
missed it. How did you guys get into this one?
Just
We got a lot of time to kill, and off the air, I just kind of brought it up.
The mind wanders.
Then I wound up on the air, and now we're talking to you about
I just
it.
tried to be honest with them right off. I said, for 20, I'm not going in for $20. I think it's
Sounds
going to be
terrible.
garbage. Yeah, but I
Well,
like.
you started out talking about tacos, and I said, I'd go in for tacos. I'd go in.
No, but my customer is tired of all that. He's tired of the tacos. He's tired of pizza.
Yeah.
He's tired of hamburgers. He's tired
I
of
understand.
whatever
No,
else is
you're
around there.
right, and you're going to give them a fresh, something new.
Yes,
something
a nice juicy steak.
Right. I know you're trying to give them a good experience too. I understand
Yeah,
that.
quickly.
It's not going to happen.
Probably not. But, I'm interested now that you're talking about pregame meals, and you said you ate steak for pregame meals all those
Yeah,
years.
then you
even in high school?
Yeah, and my mom would fix it for me. I'd come home after school, and she'd fix it. But I spent all those years eating improperly, but we didn't know. We weren't taught about carbohydrates, and then when I hear Wayne Gretzky saying exactly the same thing, and he's younger than me. We all came through that period, and I played at Indiana with Tom and Dick Van Arsdale, the twins that were great players in college and high school, and then NBA, and they're still my best buddies. And one other one, although I lost him this past year, Sal Bando. We lost him, and he was my other best buddy. By the way, Eddie Doucette is too. I got 4 of them that we stay close contact with, but Tom and Dick and I talk about this about. They've asked me many times over the years, like, before the game, John, we're out there warming up. There were times I felt like I was going to collapse, and they said, "Did you feel that way?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And it was because we didn't have the proper nutrition. And in college, we were in a fraternity. You eat whatever they throw at you. Fortunately, it was probably a lot of starch and carbs in the fraternity house. But steak is not the right thing for a pregame meal.
But, okay, so steak has always been on the upper end of the socioeconomic spectrum. So growing up there in Franklin, Indiana, and your mom made steak for you?
How did she make
Once
it?
again, we're keeping costs down, so is this a 4-ounce steak or what?
Well, now think about this, too. My father was a taxi cab driver, and before that, a milkman in this little town. He had 4 taxi cabs, and it ended up bankrupting him over about 15 or 20 years. But my point is, there was no money, but we didn't really know there was no money. You just, I had 2 pair of jeans and grew up in a small town, but my parents, like many, would tell the same story. They put me first, and my brother. And my dad every day said to me from about the 7th, 8th grade on, you're going to college on a scholarship, you're going to get a degree. And that's all I thought of. And so if I needed a steak, which we thought you needed then, they would provide it, and at their cost. I mean, they would give something up to make sure I had that. And they went to every high school game at home and on the road, and all the buildings were sold out in Indiana in those days.
That is wild. That is.
It is. And they went to every home college game and half the away games in the Big Ten.
That had to have been a hardship for your parents. I mean, seriously, the money they must have spent following you around playing basketball, right?
And feeding you steak.
Yeah, and feeding you steak,
Which
too.
wasn't good for you. Think about the money they could have saved if they would have just fed you chicken or fish.
So let me tell you the story. So, all through, even out of college and in the pros, I was asked to speak over the years at many things, banquets and awards programs and Christian things. And I did a lot of speaking. And very often I would tell a story about my parents and, how hard they worked and on and on. And many people can tell the same story. This isn't a poor as me. This is a wonderful me, because I had parents that loved me and put everything aside to get me to that college scholarship. And I was telling a story that I told many times. I think I was about 32 years old. I'd be at football and basketball practice, and I'd look over in the corner of the football field or the gym, and there would be my dad standing, watching in between taxi cab runs, picking somebody up for $1, picking somebody up, and he'd be there watching. And when I told that story many times, and then this time when I was 32, telling it at a banquet, I actually broke down. I lost it because I realized, even at 32, what my parents were. And I'm sure many people can tell that story, but it was very emotional for me. And they were there, man, and they gave everything up to be there. And fortunately, playing at Indiana, we lived about 50 miles away, so they could get to every home game. And then, as I said, half the away games in the Big Ten, which you can think about it, they could drive to Wisconsin, Purdue, even Ohio State. So they made a lot of the away games.
Sure. You're an Indiana guy. You played at Indiana. Are you pulling for Purdue in the tournament at this point?
I am. And when you go to IU or you go to Purdue, the other school, like me at IU, you're supposed to hate Purdue, and they're your rivalry. They're the big rivalry. But we had Notre Dame in our state also, and we played them. Yeah. However, Purdue was in the Big Ten with us. And,
right.
And actually, I was recruited by Purdue, and I thought about it for about a day. But I am pulling for them because, like with Wisconsin, I pull for the Big Ten. And I watch Wisconsin at UW. I care about them a lot. Sure, I'll watch what Marquette does too, but I'm a Big Ten guy, and it was actually 10 teams in those days.
Right.
Yeah, it made sense, right?
Yeah, the name was appropriate. So yeah, I'm pulling for Purdue. I am.
All right, so you cleared that up. I want to back up to the steak that your mom was preparing. How did she make it? Was it on the grill? Was it in a cast iron frying pan? Yeah. Right.
We didn't have a grill. You didn't cook out in those days. There were no grills. You never knew about a grill, and every meal you ate was home because you didn't go. There was basically no fast food when I was in high school.
Right.
Not until I was in college did I see a McDonald's. And she would, most of the women in those days, they would fry a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You'd fry almost everything.
Did your mother have a can of grease on the stove that she'd grease the pan with before she started?
Yeah, sure.
She'd take a big scoop out and just throw it in the pan to get things rolling.
Right.
Just some starter grease.
And the thing, we ate a lot of Navy soup beans with big fat dumplings in it made out of Bisquick.
Yeah.
And cornbread and things like that, because in Indiana, where I grew up in this small town 20 miles south of Indianapolis, it was a great southern influence there on us. I grew up hearing a lot of country music before I obviously got into rock and roll in 1956, but that's how they cooked then. Everything was fried or on the stove, as you indicated.
Yeah. So it was kind of seared then. Hey, I have great news, John. First of all, we're down to 37 minutes to go in the Radiothon. All right. You can call and make your donations, 414-978-9500. $50 donation or over, you get the Radiothon T-shirt. It doesn't say McGloklin on the back. It says Bob and Brian on it.
Somehow that seems wrong, but,
And it's good. That's good. I like it.
And, of course, you can check out all the stuff that we have on the Internet. You can go scroll through there at 1029thehog.com. Now, John, the good news that I want to share with you is we have 37 minutes to go. And we have, are you ready for this? Already exceeded last year's total.
Man, every year I'm not surprised. I'm thrilled because this money is about saving lives. Okay, I think that's pretty important. And then what you guys do at the station is it's not just you two. As you two know, you've got a great team there and support staff. And what I love, and I've talked about it with you before, guys, is I love the word commitment. I love that word, and it's kind of a lost word in our society. People, I don't know, it scares people, I think. And I love the word commitment, and it's part of what drove me, commitment, motivation, drove me as an athlete and all through my life and everything. And you guys, your show, your golf outing, the station, you've been committed to us for a lot of years, and you stay in the game. You stay there. You know, a lot of people do something and then they're gone. That's it. And sometimes people will tell me how, oh, it's a wonderful cause, and then if something happens or whatever, and they're not quite happy, they're gone. Well, come on. Let's stay committed, and you have. And you raised a lot of money for us, and we're saving a lot of kids' lives with new research, things they're finding out, new protocols, how to treat these kids, so that not only is it life enhancing, it's making the quality of that period of time between diagnosis and perhaps they're off chemo or off a program. It makes that, we're trying to make that better so it's not so invasive and destructive.
I would never, if anybody asked me to describe John McGloklin, I would never say, well, he's really greedy. He's a very, very greedy man, unless we're talking about the MACC Fund, and at which point you are like, yeah, give me the money. I will take all the money you want to send me right now. And you're always big on the last hour of the show and making a big push to get the cash in where it can do good for people who need your help.
Bob, 100%. I feel no guilt about pushing people for the money, because it's not to enhance me. It's to save these kids' lives. And let me tell you a story about this one. So years ago, and TMJ4 still does an online, just did it a couple weeks ago, a week-long auction of items and things. But if you go back further, they gave us a telethon. We call it MACC-a-thon. And we were on from like 6 to midnight or 1 a.m. And Terry Mewson, who was Wisconsin's Miss America and Miss Wisconsin, and a friend, she and I hosted it. So they turned the studio over to us. And we hosted it. We had all these people come through that raised money for us and did events. And back then it wasn't as many as it is now. And so we were about the third year into it, and she had a baby and her first child. And that night she was doing an interview on the MACC-a-thon with a cancer mom and dad who had lost their child. And when Terry finished the interview, now the phones were silent. We got phone banks and all that, you know, and they were silent. And when she finished the interview, she turned to the camera, and she's a tremendous talent. She looked into the camera, and she started to cry. And she said in the camera, when you get on your hands and knees tonight to pray for this family, and she named them, and she started to cry and couldn't get through it. And then kind of got through it, total silence in that building at TMJ4. She said, thank you, did a cutaway. They came off, and the phones went crazy.
Yeah.
And she came over to me and said, oh, John, I'm so sorry. I said, are you kidding me? I want you to cry every year and tell the story, because there's no guilt in why we're doing it.
Right.
Because when you hit people's hearts, not their heads, their hearts, that's when things happen.
And that's why you don't apologize for your greed. At least today you don't, because it's not for you. It's to help the kids. John, we have to take a break. Stand by.
Okay, guys.
We're down to the last 32 minutes of the Radiothon. Yeah, call, make your donations, 414-978-9500. You can also donate online. Just go to 1029thehog.com.
Help give the gift of hope. More of your favorite athletes and special guests still to come.
And so I started thinking like 6 degrees of separation. How about some of Doc's teammates you might have played against? So I looked at it, 1983 Hawks roster. Did you ever play against Billy Paltz?
I did not.
Do you remember him?
I do.
What can you tell us about him?
Big, size-wise. He wasn't a great pro. He was just a good pro thanks to his size. But a lot of Doc's guys. That's when I was doing television and radio, so I covered Doc and a lot of his teammates as an announcer. But as a player, the guys that I would have overlapped with some in the NBA would be guys like Maurice Lucas, who became, a great player for Portland. As a matter of fact, in the summers, we would work out with a lot of the Marquette guys.
Yeah.
And Maurice was a power forward and a big, handsome, strong, tough guy.
I mean, that's a matinee name, right? Starring Maurice Lucas. Come on. Really, and then he's athletically talented. You said he was. I don't really remember what Maurice looked like, but you said he was a good-looking guy.
Good-looking guy, and so when we would work out in the summers. That summer, a couple summers before he graduated, he would ask me to help him with his shooting, and because in college he wasn't a great shooter, he was kind of a bank shooter. But in the pros, he became quite good at intermediate range. And in Portland, on that Bill Walton team, that won the NBA championship. And Maurice was – so he was one of the guys from Marquette that I overlapped with. And, of course, I overlapped with Al. McGuire knew him fairly well. And I knew Majerus quite well because he would work out with us in the summer also. And always would get him on my team because – all he would do is set screens for me, and I'd shoot, and we'd win.
Rick Majerus worked out? That's hard to believe.
You know what he would do?
No.
You know his build. So we'd be in the summer, we'd be up there in the gym at Marquette, in the old gym, which is up on the second floor. And loved that gym because all of us did, because the floor was soft. It wasn't built on concrete. And when you become a pro, you look for soft floors because of your knees.
Yeah.
And so we'd work out, and he would put on the top of his body, he would put on a rubber suit, and it got to the point we had to get on him and make him take it off because he would sweat so much.
I was going to say, was he trying to drop some weight?
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Wasn't worth it, and it wasn't safe. And he would sweat so much that we're all falling all over the floor, slipping on his sweat.
God, that sounds like a horror movie. Yeah.
And finally we had to say, you can't play unless you take the suit off. So he did do that. But he would always play with us. And obviously as a coach, he was a great coach, I think. And he knew what to do, so he knew how to play. It's just his body couldn't always get him to do it, but he knew what to do, like set screens. And when he set a screen, nobody came through the screen.
And get the ball to the guy who's the sharpshooter.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you get a great screener with a shooter, that's a winning combination.
Hey, speaking of sharpshooters, and you certainly qualify for that. When you were playing in the NBA, I've said a million times, if you came around now, they wouldn't have enough money in the NBA to pay you.
No, I'd be pretty wealthy.
Yes.
That's correct.
Who in your prime, who was a better outside shooter, you or Caitlin Clark? Because she is really good.
Well, we watch all the women because I have two granddaughters that one's an 8th grader and one was a junior at Keller Moraine girls team not this year, but the 2 years prior, they won the state championship and had 3 of the best girls in the state on their team, but they graduated. But my granddaughter was a junior this year and she started. So we were at all those games, and I've got an 8th grader that honestly, now you think, I'm stretching here. If I was 24 and went out in the driveway with her on our hoop, she could shoot with me.
Wow.
Yeah, but she's little. But so we go to all these women's games, girls' games. So we're really into the women's stuff. And my other two girls are in plays and stuff from my son's side. So they've had numerous brain surgeries, and so they can't do athletics. And so we really watched Caitlin. We watched all of that. We watched LSU, the whole thing. And I think she's tremendous. She's a great shooter. I think she could absolutely shoot with Steph Curry. She can do a little of what he does of shooting off balance in awkward situations. That's something not everybody can do. And what she's done for women's basketball is tremendous, and the rivalry with LSU and all of that. I think it's great theater. It's wonderful, and I think she's going to be a great pro.
And there's more action tonight. I mean, so
that's right.
Who knows what we'll be saying on Monday morning about them?
That's right.
But when you say not many people can do that, basically there's about 8 people who can do that on the planet, right?
Oh, I'm not even sure I know the other 6.
Okay, fine. There you go.
Well, here's my point. Okay, Caitlin or Steph Curry. If I was 24 and went to the gym and we said let's just shoot and match each other,
right?
I could shoot with them because I used to shoot with Brian Winters. My last year for the Bucks, Brian was with us, came in the Kareem trade, and he and I would stay after and do that. And Brian Winters was a great shooter. He could shoot it as well as I could shoot. So could Flynn Robinson. So could Freddie Brown. So if I just went in the gym at 24 and years of age and shot against those two, just straight shooting, I could shoot with them. But what I couldn't do that they can do, Caitlin and Steph, they can shoot off balance, on the move, crooked, falling down. They can do that with great accuracy that most people cannot do.
Yeah, you were more of the classic jumper guy,
yes,
if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my year, you didn't, guys, the game was more control. In college, if I threw a behind-the-back pass in the game, the coach took me out. The coaches stunted the game in those days. They didn't let us do those things, unless you were Pete Maravich and played for his dad.
McGloklin, you showboat. Get down on the bench and stay there.
You took me out, I'm telling you.
You were the guy in gym class that the gym teacher wanted everybody to shoot like, that kind of form, hands, hips, legs together, all that stuff, almost like an arrow, everything was.
Let me tell you the story, Bob. People, talk to me about this, and that's my background. I was a shooter, and they always say, well, you never saw a shot you didn't like. Do you know that our championship year, I think I took 10 or 11 shots a game and averaged 15 and a half points. I didn't get a lot of shots. People think I did, but I didn't. Even the year I averaged almost 20, the first year in Milwaukee, I think I averaged 15 shots a game or 14.
But you were on a team with Oscar. You were on a team with Kareem. You were on a team with Bob Dandridge.
Right.
And then there was you. Where did you fall as far as options on the offense?
Well, Larry Costello ran plays for me, but our first option was usually always going into Kareem.
Sure.
And then we ran screens and back screens and up screens and different things off of it. Like the ball would go into him, and a lot of times you don't just stand and watch him, you move. And so there might be a back screen but I think that year I averaged 10 or 11 shots a game. I shot 50%. And on that team, everybody did. I've told you this, guys, before, but the championship year, the starting 5, 4 of the 5 averaged 50% or greater field goal percentage for the year.
Yeah.
The one guy that didn't was 48.5%, and it was Oscar.
Oscar, the slacker.
Right. And he was
but he was, he was going to pass it around.
He shoots 48% and calls himself a leader. Right.
Oh,
yeah. Right. Come on.
Here's how I describe him, because I've been asked over the years on books and things that people call me. And Oscar Robertson was a perfect basketball player. Perfect.
Yeah.
Everything he did was perfect. And, Jordan was maybe the greatest athlete. Chamberlain was right up there with him as a great athlete. And Russell was the greatest defensive player. And I can go down the line, Jerry West, the greatest clutch shooter in history, probably, although there's a lot of them today that are great. But Oscar just was perfect in every area of the game. He was just perfect. And I told a writer that wrote, famous writer out of Chicago who wrote Jordan Rules, Jordan's book on Jordan Rules, and he asked me on an Oscar story once and I described it as I just did to you guys, and he goes, "Can I use that? I've never heard that before." I said, "Yeah, just so you make sure it's mine, like the skyhook is Eddie Doucette."
Right. Hey, John, we're down to 15 minutes left in the Radiothon.
Okay.
All right. You make your donation, 414-978-9500. Again, you can go to Boucher.com and make Boucher.com. That's wrong. It's 1029thehog.com. Boucher.com is one of the sponsors for this hour. Yeah, you can make your bids. You can make your donations. Either way, there are people standing by to accept your cash to help out the MACC Fund. We'll be back to wrap this thing up. We're going to finish hard, John. You got to run through the line. Okay. All right. I want any of this letting up. A couple of steps to go. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
Get yourself some Gatorade, and we'll be back after this.
It's the back to Bob and Brian's Radiothon to benefit the MACC Fund, presented by Callan Construction. Together, we can help cure childhood cancer. Call 414-978-9500 or donate online at 1029thehog.com.
And final minutes of Bob and Brian's MACC Fund Radiothon. Thanks to Callan Construction. This hour brought to you by Doral Equipment Rental. Boucher.com phone number 414-978-9500. Portion of all donations being matched by Rogan Shoes, which is very nice. We thank them, and just got a few minutes to bid on those auction items on the website.
And John McGloklin is with us. And John, we've been running a piece during the Radiothon that has a line in it, trying to return the lightness of life that cancer takes away. And that's the MACC Fund.
Yes. You know, thanks for bringing that one up. That's, I was asked recently at some interview, I don't recall what it was, how I want to be remembered, because, I'm getting up there, and the athletic things are special, and growing up in Indiana as a basketball player is special, in my entire background. But I've told you guys this on the air before, that it's the MACC Fund that I want to be remembered for, because I've thought the small town, and I had a dirt court in my backyard, and we hung lights up so I could play at night. How did I get from there to the NBA and a championship and All-Star and all that stuff when I was just, I was really a good high school and college player, but as a pro, you think you're good, and then you find out you got a lot of things that aren't so good because they're so outstanding at this level. But I believe that I'm a strong Christian. I believe in my Savior, and I believe that part of the plan for me was to get me to where it did for the MACC Fund, so that we could save kids' lives. And what cancer does to families when a child has cancer, it's not just the child, it's families, it's grandmas and grandpas and moms and dads and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and friends, and it controls your entire world. And you guys know, everybody that's had a child knows that when a baby comes home, the baby controls the entire household and controls everything. And they do your whole life, your children. And when you've got to go through cancer to save their lives, and there's been so many things that have come across my bow that affect me and motivate me. And I've told you many times, the failures in my life are the athletically, and we know we don't win every battle with the MACC Fund and with the kids, but it's the failures that motivate me to say, get back up and get out there and fight. And we need what you guys do, the station. We need what Southeastern and all of Wisconsin does for us. That's why the people here are so wonderful. I have such a regard for the people of Wisconsin, of which, even though I grew up in Indiana, I've been here twice as long as I was in Indiana. I've been here 55 years, and this is our home. Our kids are cheeseheads, and our grandkids, and the people here are wonderful, and what they've done to support the MACC Fund and what we're doing to save our kids' lives. And guys, here's the beauty of this. When we have breakthroughs at the Medical College of Wisconsin, Children's Hospital, Carbone Cancer Center in Madison, Marshfield Clinic, when we have breakthroughs, it impacts the world. So it helps children all over the world, in the Philippines, in California, in Illinois, wherever, because it's a breakthrough to help better treatments, to make it less invasive and save more lives. So the MACC Fund's been a privilege, and it's got my commitment until the Lord calls me home, and then it will have my family's commitment and all the others at the MACC Fund and the people of Wisconsin, because we need you all to do these things. We can't raise the money if you don't step up and do the events, or run an event and come to our events, or write a check, or call in to the Bob and Brian Radiothon and bid. We need all you people so that we make our community better.
414-978-9500 is the number to call. 1029thehog.com if you want to bid on some of the items. There's just a couple of minutes
Or
left.
you can just make your donation. John, just roughly, how many events have you been to for the MACC Fund since this thing started back in 1976, when you retired? Yeah, your retirement started.
December 10th, 19 is the official date. Golly, Bob, I've never been asked that question. And as you guys know, I tell you guys what you ask me because most people ask the normal down the alley questions, down the middle. I have no idea. Because the early years when Eddie and I would go on radio and TV, Eddie Doucette, and talk about the MACC Fund, and people started calling me, and the first year we raised $35,000, and now we've given over $85 million.
That number, do you ever think about that number, $85 million that the MACC Fund has raised? That's staggering.
It's unbelievable. It is staggering is a great word for it, isn't it? It's a perfect word for it. And that's the people down here in southeastern Wisconsin and all the events and all the things we do. And, we have a staff of 6 people that run 80 events with
right.
groups. And that's how people can help us, make a donation, call, do something. But, the early years I'd get calls and people want to meet me and say, well, if we want to give to the MACC Fund for what we do, come and tell us about the MACC Fund. So I went to hundreds. I don't know that I've been to thousands, but I've been to hundreds. And it's been a privilege. And we got to keep it going because, the cure rates are up. They were 20% back in 76.
Dr. Margolis was talking about that yesterday, the survival rate or
yes.
or the
going from 20 to
80%. That in itself is amazing.
It's amazing, and without research, it wouldn't have happened. And our money goes to research. Think about it. Without research, it wouldn't have happened. And so all of our money's gone to research. And because of that, they can recruit at the facilities where we send this money here in the state. They can recruit the top people because you can have $1 million machine that can do something big to help find cures for cancer. But if you don't have people that can run that machine or analyze how to do it or put it together, the machine's no good.
Right.
You got to have the people. It's talent, and we've had that, and we got to keep going because cancer's tricky. It's mean. It's evil. It's tricky. It can alter its look, and it can go this way after they block it here and then block it there. But these great doctors like Dave Margolis and all the others over there, they're committed, man, and they're working on it, and they say someday we're going to get it all, but we're getting closer with that percentage.
And you can donate now to help Dr. Margolis and all those others who are working on it, 414-978-9500. You can also donate online at 1029thehog.com. John, we've come to the end.
My guys. You're my guys. I love you. I've gotten to know you personally over the years. You do a great job with this, and we're all doing it for the right reasons. And what's nice about it is you build a good friendship along the way.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks for the help. You're a good basketball player. You're better at this.
Thank you. That's a privilege.
All right. John McGloklin, that's a wrap on the MACC Fund Radiothon on the Hog.
Bob and Brian's Radiothon to benefit the MACC Fund.
The role of the MACC Fund has just been incredible in enabling research here in Wisconsin, particularly in Milwaukee and in Madison, to do cutting-edge kind of research. The kind of grant work that the MACC Fund allows enables us to do risky projects, new ideas. So I really want to thank all of you and the MACC Fund itself that's been providing this critical research since 1976 and has been doing so in a larger way virtually every year. And it's not only impacting children of Wisconsin, but the research that's coming out of Wisconsin is having an impact on childhood cancer treatment around the world.
Donate now at 1029thehog.com.